Hello and welcome to the Sexually Satisfied Woman. I am your host, Eva Blake, and in this interview series, I'm talking to a variety of experts who are uniquely qualified to discuss some of the most common challenges that women face in our sexuality. And over the course of this series, we're going to offer some real practices, some proven strategies, and hopefully a little bit of fun to boost your confidence, ditch the shame, and create truly remarkable relationships and intimacy so that you can have the sexual satisfaction that you deserve, especially in these uncertain times. And I'm really excited to be welcoming Ashley Manta to the show today. Ashley Manta is an award-winning sex educator and coach and has become a sought-after authority on mindfully combining sex and cannabis as part of her CannaSexual brand. She is the author of the CBD Solution, Sex, published in conjunction with Mary Jane and Chronicle books. She also writes for Playboy as a Playboy Advisor, and Ashley has appeared on the cover of Sexual Health magazine in January 2019, along with the designation of, get this, America's High Priestess of Pleasure. She completed her certification as a Bodysex Facilitator after studying with the legendary pleasure pioneer Betty Dodson and is a brand ambassador for Sybian and Foria. So welcome, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
A pleasure. The High Priestess of Pleasure says it's a pleasure. It's exciting. Okay, so let's just start with the good stuff. Let's talk about weed, shall we?
Excellent.
Now, some folks might say that, combining cannabis and sex is like new and trendy because it's on the news or it's in the news, right? We're seeing it more and more, but we also know that people and cultures have been doing this for a long time throughout human history, combining aphrodisiacs or plants or other kinds of oils and sensations into our sexuality. And now it's just legal. So we're going to just start with the basics. How does cannabis enhance sexual pleasure?
That's a great place to start. And there are so many ways. The way that I like to explain it to people is that cannabis can help address the things that get in the way of pleasure, connection, and intimacy. Things like pain, shame, feeling disconnected from your body, not being able to turn off your brain. Those kinds of things can be addressed by mindfully deploying different types of cannabis. And the best thing is you don't have to be high. A lot of people worry that like, oh, I don't want to feel high. I don't want to be out of control. Totally valid. And that there are a lot of ways to work with cannabis without actually having to feel intoxicated.
Fantastic. So there are ways that you can have cannabis without being high. And so I think that's CBD, but can you tell us the difference between THC and CBD? Because even when I have been, a weed smoker for 20 plus years and I still don't really understand it. Can you help us get clear?
Absolutely. It is one of the things that most people are kind of fuzzy about, especially because there's so many conflicting things in the media, right? Right. Both THC and CBD are compounds known as cannabinoids, specifically because they are plant-derived. They're called phytocannabinoids. Our bodies actually produce endocannabinoids, and we have an entire system in our bodies called the endocannabinoid system with receptors literally throughout all of our organ systems and our nervous systems everywhere. And this system is designed to keep our body in homeostasis. And so when we take in external cannabinoids from plants, phytocannabinoids like THC and CBD, they work with our body's receptors to produce specific results. THC is a cannabinoid that in its active form causes intoxication, it helps with pain, it's an anti-inflammatory, does all sorts of really great stuff for our bodies. And CBD is another one. CBD, as my friend Chelsea Sabara likes to say, is a slutty cannabinoid.
Oh boy, what does that mean?
Because it binds loosely to a lot of different types of receptors.
I see.
Okay, so it's like weak action at a number of different receptor sites. So CBD is awesome and it's great for anti-inflammatory. It's had some really promising impact on anxiety, which of course is a thing that can get in the way of pleasure. However, CBD on its own, without any other cannabinoids present, is not as effective because it doesn't bind directly to the receptors the way that THC does. It needs these other cannabinoids to help it have more robust effects. And so when you see people like, oh, I'm going to have like a 2 milligram CBD gummy that's just CBD and nothing else, you're looking at a lot of placebo effect.
Okay. Okay. So I just want to go back for a minute, right? Because essentially what you're saying is that the human body is designed in its eloquent evolution to interact specifically with this plant. That
Yes.
there's a way in which that this plant and the human structure, the human form, the human chemistry, that we are designed to be interactive together.
Absolutely.
I feel like that part should be plastered on billboards everywhere to reduce some of the anxiety or the shame that, and just the taboo that we have in this culture around marijuana, around cannabis, even though it's becoming more and more legal. Okay. So tell us about some of the ways that if we're going to use cannabis with our sexuality, what would we be looking at? Because there's so many different kinds of cannabis, the ways that we put it in our body or on our body. Topical, we may eat it, we may smoke it. There are 10 different types of ways that you can smoke it, right?
Yes.
But if you're somebody who either has maybe smoked joints in the past and like stuck you on the couch and you had a great time and it was really funny and like, that style, right? Or you've never come to it before, how would you, where would we start to think about if I want to bring this into my life to create more pleasure or to reduce more anxiety, where do I begin?
Absolutely. So for people who are new to cannabis, I like to start with as unobtrusive a method of consumption as possible that does not have intoxicating effects, and that's topicals. Topicals can be rubbed, you could use it as a massage oil to have your lover massage you. You could take a bath with an infused bath bomb, or you can actually apply it directly to the vulva.
Bring it.
Yes.
Bring the pillow.
Right? So for women and people with vulvas, this is a really, really helpful thing because a lot of people with vulvas have pain with penetration, myself included, for most of my life because of sexual trauma. And applying a topical cannabis oil, especially ones containing THC, can help reduce that pain and enhance pleasure. And this was the thing that allowed me to have pain-free penetration. And that was what led me to create CannaSexual, because I was like, oh my God, no one's talking about this.
Breakthrough.
We need to know. Everyone needs to know. So you put it all over the clit, the inner labia, the vaginal opening, and you let it marinate. This is not a lube that you would use like just to make things more slick halfway through sex. You want to apply this in advance, about 15 to 25 minutes in advance, to really let it soak into the nerves and the tissue. And then I really encourage people to masturbate first, to see how it feels, to notice the effects, to see what it does. And that way you have a much more informed picture going into partnered sex.
Sure. So you take it on a test drive is what you're saying, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So now we can go to the grocery store, right? And we can get CBD products at our local grocery store, right? But I mean, is that the best solution? Are there particular brands that you like that are, the best ones? Or, if we're not brand allegiant, right? What might we be looking for in terms of a product to add to our life?
Absolutely. So the most important thing to keep in mind when you're buying any over-the-counter CBD products is looking for something called a COA, a certificate of analysis. And what that does is it will let you know that this product, exactly how much CBD is in it, that it has been tested and is shown to be free of pesticides, any kind of microbials, solvents, residual solvents of any kind that can be irritating. And that just allows you to buy with confidence. The way that I would explain it is, would you go to your grocery store to buy a high-end sex toy? Probably not. Right? not a good chance of success if you're trying to buy like the Cadillac of vibrators at the grocery store or the gas station. So, you know, when you are buying things at a convenience store, it's not going to be the same kind of quality as if you were to go to a reputable company that is known to have really good products, that has, you know, for me, Foria. I am biased. I work with them. I get paid by them. But the reason that I chose to work with them is because they're the best, because I have very high standards, and I really want to make sure that people are using things that are safe for their bodies. And there is a lot of snake oil on the market. There's a lot of, especially water-based CBD lubes that have irritating other chemicals in them, like glycerin, parabens, sodium benzoate, propylene glycol, like all of these things that can be very irritating to vulvas. So I tend to prefer oil-based generally. However, of course, as you know, if you're using an oil-based product, you can't use latex barriers, but there are a lot of non-latex barriers that are completely compatible with oil, like polyurethane and nitrile are both totally safe to use with oils. So keeping that in mind if STIs and pregnancy prevention is something that's a concern.
Right. It's so, thanks so much for unpacking that, because it made me think of, you know, the way that when I go to the grocery store, I go to the organic aisle, right? Because that is a value of mine, because I don't want pesticides in my food. So I definitely don't want them in my vagina. Right. Right.
Pesticide-free zone.
Yeah, totally. Right. And I don't want them in your vagina or anybody else's bits or parts or any mucous membranes at all. Right. And also just the reality that, you know, when I go to shop for lubrication, I'm also looking for an organic product, right? So it doesn't have those things that maybe create yeast infections or are plastic or are known to be carcinogenic, right? And I think that when new products come on the market, like a CBD something or rather, it's really easy to forget that the things that that are values to mine in other shopping realities are going to be true here. So
yes,
I just really want to appreciate that because it's easy to be like, oh, there's this new thing. Let me just try it and see what happens.
Absolutely.
So, you know, if we want to experiment more intentionally with cannabis, right? We want to create something for ourselves, right? So when you're coaching someone or in all the many articles that you have written on the subject, right? How do you help folks figure out what they want to get out of the experience in order to help them figure out how they're going to relate to this plant for themselves, alone, or with their partner?
That's a great question. And I really start by asking them, what is your intention? How do you feel? What's getting in the way? And how do you want to feel? And based on that answer, if it's, oh, I'm really stuck in my head, I can't turn off my to-do list in my brain, I really want to get in touch with my body, that's not a thing that topicals are going to help with, right? Like that's a thing that you're going to need to do something probably inhaled. I tend to not recommend edibles, especially to newbies, because it's just so easy to overconsume. Everybody that I know that has ever consumed cannabis has at least one really bad edibles story where I took this corner of a brownie and I didn't feel anything after 35 minutes. So I ate more. And then 2 hours later, I was regretting every single one of my life choices in order. Like,
totally. There were so many stars in the sky.
Yes,
Yeah.
Littered across the bathroom floor. Like it was just, it's very fraught to do edibles, especially because it can take up to 2 full hours to feel the effects. And some studies are now saying it could even be like 3 hours. So that's a lot of variation. And so to be able to be on the same page with your partner and to be able to predict when you're going to start to feel the effects and when it's going to be best for your sexy times to commence, that's a lot of logistics that most people don't have the bandwidth for. So I say inhalation. So smoking, vaping, of course, vaping is going to be better for your lungs than smoking. Specifically vaping flower or the green cannabis bud is the healthiest way to inhale cannabis. And that you'll start to feel the effects. Sometimes people feel it immediately, but sometimes it takes 5 or 10 minutes, but that's a much smaller window. So you can say, okay, I'm going to do a little bit. Again, start low.
Yeah.
Very much like cooking with salt, you can add, you can never subtract. Right? So start very low, notice how your body's feeling, like see, okay, is my tactile sensation coming online? Is my brain starting to quiet down? How's this going? Again, do it while you're masturbating so that you don't have another person kind of distracting you from your experience. And that way, you know, when you go to the partnered experience, okay, I know this is how much I need. This is what it's going to do. This is how long it takes, and write it down, because cannabis, one of its wonderful effects is short-term memory loss. And so
Yeah.
you
How much was that?
right,
How much
exactly.
did I
How much
have?
did I smoke? What was that thing? And
Yeah.
so don't gamble with mystery joints. Don't just like smoke what happens to be handed to you. Like really create intentionality and ritual around it.
Right.
Where you actually take the time to appreciate, wow, someone grew this. Someone took the time to like have a relationship with this plant, bring it out of the earth, package it and get it to me. And also from a social justice perspective, there are people sitting in jail for this plant that you are currently using to enhance your sex life.
Yes.
And there's a lot of racism and systemic oppression in the war on drugs. And so like being mindful of, it is a privilege to be able to consume cannabis. And so not only are you doing this to enrich your life, but also being mindful of, I want to vote for people who are into expunging records and who want to get people out of jail and who are decriminalizing this, because that's really important.
You're speaking so much about responsibility, right? Responsibility for self, right? Don't just take the mystery joint just because it's handed to you, right? And there's something about that that is, you know, not just being responsible but for self, but being really intentional with self, right? So that we're not absent-mindedly just consuming something, right? Like, you know, pulling up a chair to the pantry when I'm bored and just like, you know, eating, right? When just because I'm bored, right? Or taking something just because it's available, right? And and then you're also really talking about how we are responsible to the people who brought us this thing, and then the other people who, like you said, have been incarcerated. So the real community responsibility we have, and I think that is just so valuable, because oftentimes we think about sexuality or what I do behind my own closed doors in the privacy of my own home is just about me, and really there's so many ways in which the things that we add to our sexuality is really so much, has so much to do about how it comes to us through the other people and the communities that it has touched in order to be with us. So I just want to, you know, really appreciate you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you.
So besides these like nuts and bolts and beginning steps of cannabis, right? You know, what is the next level? Right? In your work, right? We've covered the baseline, right? So what's the next level?
The next level is ritual.
Bring it.
To create, I identify as a witch and I practice sex magic and plant magic, and cannabis has been such a powerful ally to me in my magical workings, where I do, you know, open sacred space, and I have crystals and I have incense and I have music, and I use cannabis, and I intentionally use it to connect with spirit, to connect with myself, my higher self, to really feel into my body. And then sharing that intention with my partner, if I happen to be in a partnered sexual space, where I say, okay, what do we want to manifest together? How do we want to use this to co-create something really powerful? And I'm also a Reiki master. So I have found that cannabis can be an incredible ally in energetic work and helping me to manipulate and direct energy in a really positive way, to loosen blockages and help things move through. And so I would say that is kind of the next level. If you are going beyond just like, oh, this is going to feel better, I'm going to have orgasms more accessible to me, or I'm going to feel closer to my partner. If you want to like really go the distance, like I manifested a beach house. So
beautiful. Right. Lovely. Do you have a good view of the beach, of the water?
I do when I go like out to the edge of the street. Like my apartment has a bigger house next to it, so like that blocks my ocean view. But when I go to the street, I'm half a block from the ocean. So
beautiful, beautiful. You're in very close proximity.
For sure. And I can feel that energy, and it's powerful.
Yeah. The ocean is pretty magical, right? So let's talk a little bit more about ritual, right? You know, I have been a witch as well for a lot of years. I'm not good with quick math, but a lot of years. And there's so many different ways that ritual can look, right?
Yeah.
And specifically around ritual around this plant, right? So can you talk a little bit about, give some examples around how can I incorporate this plant, right, and bring it into the space with me and have a relationship with this plant in as you described, in a way where we're going to share it, or we're going to imbibe, or we're going to create intention in this space and use this plant to enhance our experience. Can you give some examples of what you're actually doing? Like if someone wanted to try that for the first time or the 700th time, what's the thing that they can do?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I love to do is to smoke out of a bong, because with a bong, you are actually uniting all 4 elements: earth, air, fire, water.
Okay.
Right? That in and of itself is very powerful magic, to be bringing in all of the different elements in one consumption experience. I also like to sometimes roll my joints, not just with cannabis, but I'll add some other herbs like Damiana or rose petals or mullein or skullcap, and each one of those has its own properties. So I kind of create an herbal blend to magnify the effects of what I'm going for with the cannabis. And just, I like to leave my flower on my altar with my crystals and my other magical elements to just sort of imbibe it with yummy energy. I perform Reiki on my cannabis before I consume it to really raise the vibration. There are so many different ways, there's no wrong way to be a witch, right? There's whatever feels best for you, whatever kind of magic calls to you is great. You can charge your joints next to your crystal of choice. You can, say, I want this session to really help me open up my solar plexus so that I feel more of my sense of self, and I feel really strong and able to set boundaries, or to open up my throat chakra so I can speak my truth and use my voice. And anything you do where you're saying, this is what I want this to do, the cannabis is there to help.
Beautiful. And I think that you mentioned something really valuable, which is there's no wrong way to do it. And also including start small. Right. And because cannabis side effect is you may forget, right? Another reason to start small is so that hopefully you remember, right? And I think that that's really important when we are doing anything in our sexuality where we're trying to create more intention, is to start small so that you really can figure out, you really can track how the thing that you're doing is creating a difference for you, a difference today than from yesterday. And if you add too many things all in at once, you may not be able to track that. And then you can lose track, right? And then it can feel like a mess rather than feel like magic, right?
Yes. Write it down. Keep your journal of your intentions, what you're consuming, how you're consuming it, what kinds of rituals you're creating, and just keep track of it so that way you have that written for you so that you don't forget.
Right. And now for so many people in specific states only, right? You can go to a dispensary and you can get a lot more information. And then there are websites that tell you all different kinds of things about each strain so that you can get a much clearer picture now today than we could 10, 15, 20 years ago, when we were just, we were just taking anything that was being handed to us because there wasn't really the kind of community that had built up around, around cannabis to help us understand the chemistry, the growing, where it comes from, its lineage, et cetera. So again, like really helping to us to broaden our horizons. I want to shift gears here because the other thing that you're really well known for is hand sex. And I want to just talk about it because I think that you and I can both agree that it is one of the most underrated forms of sex play. And let's just spend a moment to elevate the hand sex. Please bring us your joy and your wisdom around hand sex. Why is it so important? Why do we want to have a better relationship with hand sex in this culture?
Hand sex is amazing. And I think the only reason that it has kind of a bad rep is because of lack of enthusiasm and lousy PR. The blowjob gets all of the press, all of the media articles, all of the porn stuff, and it's like blowjobs, 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 and they're great. Don't get me wrong. And oral sex, you know, going down on a vulva is great and it's fun. But there is only so much you can do with your mouth. And there's only so long you can do it with your mouth before your jaw gets tired or your tongue gets cramped or what have you.
And there's so many fingers. It's just
so many fingers that do so many different things and can go in different directions and can stroke and tug and tease and tickle and thrust and massage. And I really like to think of hand sex as a genital massage because we hold so much tension in our pelvic region, right? There's so much blocked in our root chakra, and it's such a powerful way to start to release that energy. And I go all the way down into the upper thighs and like the inguinal crease and the pubic mound. So, you know, above either the vulva or the penis, massaging up here. Like, it's not just, if you're playing with a vulva, it's not just going straight for the clit. It's not just jamming your fingers into the G spot. Like, it's really so powerful to slow down and have it be a really holistic, massage-based process rather than just like jamming your fingers right in. Like, that's not hand sex to me. That's just another form of penetration, which, again, nothing wrong with penetration, but this is a meditation. This is really taking your time. And with penises, you know, hand jobs with penises are one of my favorite things in the whole world. I use both hands. I'm not like propping myself up on my elbow and doing this like limp wrist, unenthusiastic thing where my eyes are rolling and they're not really paying attention. They're just like, oh,
that doesn't sound like fun. That doesn't.
Like zero fun. And so I approach hand jobs or pussy massage. I did get the moniker of pussy whisperer at Betty Dodson's retreat last summer.
How exciting.
So fun. I was very proud of that. It's when you bring joy and confidence and enthusiasm to it, you're going to have such a better time. And when you really explore all the different facets and all the textures of your hands and fingers and what happens when you experiment with speed and pressure using so much lube, like so much lube.
Yeah, more.
If you think you've used enough lube, just use more lube. I want to get Exxon Valdez up in here. Okay. Like,
yes, make it slippery. Yes,
make it slippery. Wetter sex is better sex. Absolutely.
Well, I just want to give you the last word here, and the last word. And from your practice, is there anything that is coming up right now in terms of the world, the new world that we live in, right? The 2020 world where, you know, we are in uncertain times and a lot of people are feeling isolated or disconnected, right? What is something that you could leave us with here today to help us feel more connected and more confident in our sexuality?
My advice would be connect with self so that you can connect with others. And especially for those of us who are isolated, who maybe live alone or unpartnered right now, developing a really robust masturbatory and self-love practice is crucial, because that is a thing that you can always return to. You are always there for yourself, whether you are single or just separated from your partner by distance or circumstance. That having a really strong relationship with yourself and knowing how to be your own best lover, so that when you do find yourself in a partnered space, you can be very communicative about the things that you want and need and the things that you don't like, is crucial. And being over your kind of emotional center of gravity puts you in a space where you can connect with other people from a place of having a full cup, as opposed to expecting someone else to fill that cup for you.
Beautiful. Ashley, I want to thank you so much for being here today. It was fantastic to have this conversation that meandered to a variety of topics, and thanks for swinging with me, if you will. Please come back tomorrow for another day of expert conversation and sexual satisfaction. Thank you so much.
Thank you.